Do you feel that way, Pat? Are you re-energized or because of that speech last night?
The right wing is coming home, Chris. They're all coming home from the fever swamps and forests. They're all coming home to Sister Sarah. It was a phenomenal speech, Chris, on the levels you mentioned. But more important than that, I mean, it was she's been under fire for 3 days terribly, just as a human story. The woman got up there. She'd never been on national television before, never spoken to a convention like that. And it was an astonishing performance. And it's not only her critics, but her friends and her critics. Both are saying so. And I think it's made this convention a tremendous success. The enthusiasm factor is now roughly equal on both sides. But, you know, I think there are women all over America who must have said, here's a young woman under fire. Let's see how she performs. Forget politics. And I think they've got to say, I mean, that's just a terrific young woman, and we got to be proud of her as a woman.
Dr. Phil, you are the most sympathetic person. After weeks of crocodile tears over Hillary Clinton, now you've become the foster father of all women politicians.
Chris, when I'm in the room with you,
Harry Truman last night who said, if you can't stand the heat, stay out of the kitchen. Excuse me, you guys are playing a game. You're saying, let's bring on a woman candidate, which is a great advance for American life, and then, let's not be too tough.
Chris,
excuse me, Pat, the name of this show is Hardball. Okay, let's get started here. I want to know what question's been out of line.
Okay.
What question's been out of line?
The question's been out of line. The questions are asking about her family life, putting on the front page.
That's out of line? Since when have you left the Clintons' family life out of the picture? Since when has the Republican right left the Clintons alone? You've been trailing them like bird dogs for 20 years. It's nonsense. You guys are complete charlatans on this issue.
What's your problem? What's your problem?
I have no problem with press coverage if anybody wants to run this country.
You let me talk a second. What's your problem with strong women, buddy? You got beaten up Hillary. You beat up on Hillary. You got to apologize for that. You've been beaten up on this gal. You're apologizing for that. You made the MS. The MS and NBC should not stand for misogyny.
The current state-of-the-art term for a woman running for president is woman, not gal.
Sexist.
Okay, that's the way.
The person sitting on the set that actually has estrogen flowing in her body would like to speak.
These crocodile tears are so fraudulent.
The questions that have been asked about Sarah Palin from the mainstream press have been proper. It is a proper line of inquiry. Us Magazine, anybody who sells newspapers in the magazine aisles in the grocery store, that line of inquiry is inappropriate. But just as Barack Obama had to take these questions, and every question he got was not racist, some of the questions that are being asked of Sarah Palin are not sexist. She's on the top of the ticket.
So the true sexist is the person who asked for a separate dispensation. For someone who says you can't ask questions about her appropriateness for national office. That would be the true sexist. What would Bush call that stuff? The bigotry of soft expectations?
Absolutely.
Isn't he the guy that coined that one?
He coined the phrase, and he was absolutely correct. The questions that are coming from the mainstream press, I don't have any problems with, and I'm the only woman sitting on the set.
Well,
but you're not an expert. You're not an expert. Look.
Chris,
no, I'm not either. I'm not either. But Chris, ask yourself. You got Mitt Romney, you got Fred Thompson, you got Rudy Giuliani, and you got Mike Huckabee, all of whom are mainstream moderate conservatives. All of them attack the media for what they're doing to this woman.
What are they doing? Please tell me what they're doing.
Why do you think they were cheering in the hall? Do you think they were making up what was being done to her?
I have sat here for 4 days, ever since we've heard of Sarah Palin as the nominee for vice president, learning about her. There's been no nasty questions coming from this show. We've been trying to learn. That's all we're trying to do. Who is this person? Make a list of the tax.
Do you think? All right, hold it. Do you think? Do you
want attack from this show?
Do you think the front page of the New York Times, 2 or 3 stories on her pregnant daughter, is legitimate coverage?
I'd like to just say, as someone who does not feel victimized by the fact that I am a woman, Sarah Palin is the only person who's not whining. She got up on that stage last night. Thank you for coming to her defense, Pat. But she got up on that stage last night and she rocked the house. She's not saying, I'm a woman, I'm victimized. She's saying, bring it on. She came out with both guns blazing, and she has said to every man and every woman in this country, I'm running for the second highest office in the country, and if you come for me, I'm ready.
I think, Pat, we have to ask the same questions of all the candidates. So let's get to let's get to the sweet spot. The stock market dropped 300 points today. What are we going to do about it? No, what are we going to do about it?
330.
What are we going to do about it? Those are legitimate questions. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about the health?
I think those are not only legitimate questions, they're valid issues. Why is the dollar sinking? Why is the market going down? Why is it, housing? These are all economic
So these
issues.
are the questions that the candidate for vice president, the candidates for president both, should submit themselves to on the Sunday talk shows, the weekday talk shows, the radio shows. They should get out there and answer the questions. Pat, I'm answering you the question.
All right,
is that right? Is Governor Palin responsible to the public to begin answering those questions or not?
What Governor Palin and John McCain ought to do is run the campaign they want to do, communicate in the ways they want to communicate.
You're not answering the question.
I'm not. They don't owe you a damn thing,
See, that's
Chris
the
Matthews.
point. So we can't ask any questions of the candidates.
Ask them right into the camera.
This is an interesting kind of campaign that the candidate for president will give a speech, which everyone likes, and then move on to what? The election? When is there a question put to the candidate, Pat?
You can ask her, reporters, Governor can ask her questions. You can invite her on this show, Larry King, Meet the Press. But the campaign itself has got the right to decide how they communicate with the country, that what they want them to elect.
So the references to Harry Truman last night about if you can't stand the heat, stay out of the kitchen are irrelevant.
No, you can say it right into the camera. You can say they can't stand the heat.
She's gonna,
but you can't order her on this show.
No, he can't order her on the show, but he will invite her on the show, and I guarantee you that if she's a guest on the show, she would be insulted if you didn't ask her the same questions that you would ask a male.
Do you think it's appropriate for Pat to even suggest that we might have a candidate for vice president of the United States who would skip from the nominating convention to the election booth without submitting herself or himself to tough questioning from the press? Is that even an appropriate concept in a modern American democracy?
Well, I don't think. I'm hoping that that's not what Pat is suggesting. I mean,
no, I'm not suggesting that.
I think what he is rightfully suggesting is they're going to spin and they're going to answer questions any way they want to. But I think that the bottom line is the only thing that would be sexist would be not to ask her the same questions that you would ask Joe Biden. That's the only thing.
Well, I remember a campaign in 1968 where the Republicans had Bud Wilkinson, the coach of a football coach, of Oklahoma, asking.
Who wrote the questions?
I know you did. Now that's a Pat Buchanan campaign.
That was
the campaign flack writes the questions to the candidate and has some football coach put the question to the candidate. Boy, is that democracy!
You know who programmed it? Roger Ailes. Roger Ailes programmed it as a 28-year-old. Look, Chris.
I'm just asking, Pat. Tell me the whole biography of how a campaign should be run.
Here's what I'm saying. As in the White House, as White House Communications Director, you've got an obligation to communicate with your people if you want to lead. But like Reagan, his basic format was speaking out true speeches, and he wasn't as good at Q&A. Nixon was terrific at Q&A. He had primetime press conferences. We use those. How McCain and Palin communicate, they got an obligation, is their own decision based on how they best win the presidency of the United States. Well, you and I can say anything about them we want. We can ask questions.
But I'm asking about if the American people have a right.
Who are the American people? Aren't demanding it. You are.
Well, I'm asking this. Do the American people have a right to see candidates for president and vice president submit themselves to tough questioning by objective journalists? Yes or no?
They do.
Do they have?
Yes.
Do they have a right to have that kind of performance by the candidate demanded of candidates?
Absolutely.
Do you agree?
I don't think it's a law of the land, no.
But do you think they have a right as people who vote in a democracy to have the candidates submitted to tough questions?
I think they can look at her and say if she's not answering or he's not answering tough questions, I'm concerned they don't know anything. I may not vote for him. But there's no moral obligation on them.
It's a political obligation.
No, there's not. You run a race to win.
This is extraordinary. But you were saying if Barack Obama were to run for president and not go on any show where he might face adversarial questioning, you wouldn't find a problem with that?
He just went on O'Reilly for the first time today. They've been begging him to come on Fox. Democrats don't even go on Fox. You're scared to death of them.
Scared of them?
Yes, you are. Why don't you go on there? The Democrats have been ducking them for years.
Look, I predict she's going to go on the air. She's going to answer the questions. She's going to absolutely surprise everyone the way she did last night.
Sure she will.
I think it's wonderful.
It's going to take time.
Pat, please excuse me. I think the sense of chivalry that we are seeing within the Republican Party is really nice. But you know what? She doesn't need it. She is going to do fine on her own. She's on the offensive, and she is exactly what John McCain needed. She
doesn't need it, but I'll tell you, all those four guys getting up there hammering the media, that's not only selling in this hall, that's selling in this country.
I know, it's great PR. There's no doubt what you're performing here tonight is part of the performance.
It's not PR, Chris.
No, it's brilliant.
They don't like the press.
This 1950s version of chivalry. Let me get the chair for you in an attempt to reduce her potential as a leader. It is reducing. You accuse me of not respecting strong women. This courtesy that you expect people to show her is debasing her potential as a leader of this country.
You should have shown her the courtesy for the last 3 or 4 days.
I have done so. I have not said a word against her. But I cannot stop your magazines like Us Weekly that you read from going after her. I mean, the fact that when you go shopping for Shelley, I know you're such a modern guy. I know you're going through Safeway with your cart every day, like a regular Mr. Mom. It's such an absurdity that you're playing this part. You are the most traditional husband in the American planet, and you're portraying yourself as Phil, Dr. Phil. I'm sorry, Alan Alda. Alan Alda. You're Alan Alda here. It's outrageous.
Chris is out of control. That woman got up there and whacked him down last night, and he can't handle it.
That's right, Pat.
You can't handle it, Chris.
This is, ladies and gentlemen, political cross-dressing of the worst sort you've ever seen. This guy playing Alan Alda, the Mr. Sensitive. Pat, pal of mine, someday you'll take back these charges, but until then, I forgive you.
Have a tough time in Philly with the women, Chris.
Okay, thank you. Patrick J. Buchanan, still living in somewhere about 1957, but still happy to be there.